Well, a consensus document has been agreed upon, and I would say that the most promising aspect of it all is that this consensus document exists. So what this conference is saying in itself is, hey, the G192 exists, it can talk. There is a role for the United Nations in the governance of the global economy, and all this talk preceded the conference that the UN is unable to reach a consensus, the UN is unable to suggest anything practical, it's an impossible task, or then even things were said, oh, the UN General Assembly has been hijacked by a group of radical Latin Americans and so on. It has proven false. The countries have reached a consensus. The document is there. The document is not a lowest common denominator consensus, which is frequently the case, but it goes beyond what the G20 had agreed, for example. It goes beyond the G20 in terms of the analysis of the crisis, and if you don't have an understanding of what brought you into the situation, then you cannot really get out of it, but also in terms of proposals, in terms of demanding more policy space for the countries, in terms of saying, hey, this crisis is quite exceptional, therefore exceptional measures might be required, like debt standstill, control of capital flights, and other measures that the countries should be able to adopt because it is an emergency, because it is about rescuing the people. So the conference is saying that, and this is a major progress. What the conference has not achieved is to put money on the table. And that's certainly a limitation, but a process has been opened so that we hope that the UN will continue discussing in the coming months. It's an open process, and concrete solutions should emerge out of that. It's because it is establishing a precedent of the UN saying, hey, this is all the countries in the world, and we have a say on these global issues, and fine, the World Bank, the IMF, the WTO, different agencies, they're all doing their part, but somebody has to coordinate. So the conference has not agreed yet on creating an economic coordination council, or as some people call it, an economic security council, but the need for that coordination is being expressed by the conference. So people, based on that, in the coming months, you say, oh, how are we going to coordinate? And then there are proposals on the table, among them the proposals for an economic coordination council. Yes, civil society has been demanding measures like that. We have been saying, fine, if there is a role for different agencies, like there is for different ministries back at home, but the interest of those agencies frequently collide. And what happens when they collide? What happens when what the trade organization says is inconsistent with what the finance organization says, or with what the International Labour Organization says? And who settles that conflict? At a country level, that would be the office of the president or the prime minister. But at a global level, we don't have that. Well, that should be the United Nations. That should actually coordinate that, and that's why we need that kind of a council. It's really regrettable that the mainstream world media, including the Times of London and the New York Times, have been debating about the personality of the President of the General Assembly. Who, as every other person, may have defenders and detractors, people who like him or people who dislike him, but that's not at all the point. It's not about one person. And why create such a fuss about one person? In a few days, the G8 will meet, the most powerful countries of the world. They will meet in Italy under the chairmanship of Mr. Berlusconi, who is highly controversial. Father Descotto has been accused of having weird ideas, but nothing else. The accusations that are over Mr. Berlusconi are really related even to personal morality, and yet all the major leaders of the world are going to Italy and are accepting because they say, well, it's very important, the issues that we have to deal, and it's accidental who is the president of the G8. Well, same thing goes for the General Assembly. So it shouldn't have been used as a pretext, the personality of one person, even if it is the president of the General Assembly. I think that once it is obvious that consensus has been reached and that this consensus is important, it pushes the bar higher. We don't know whether the U.S. will make or not reservations to the result, but either way it shows, it says, or it will say a lot about the position of the U.S., and hopefully then the media will portray the conference in light of the substance of what is discussed and agreed upon rather than the anecdotes.